Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day. And if you're like, oh, darn, I forgot, I did remind you several times this week. It's a worldwide celebration of love and friendship named after the Catholic Saint Valentine, who, as legend has it, was beheaded on February 14th for secretly marrying young couples against the wishes of the Roman emperor, who wanted the young men to serve as soldiers before getting married. There was also a Roman festival where the men would choose the lady or the sweetheart of their choice to escort them to the festival. And now, many centuries later, $27 billion is spent on Valentine's Day in the United States alone. That according to the National Retail Federation. Police in Indiana say they have foiled a Valentine's Day school shooting plot, and that the 18-year-old suspect, who identifies as a transgender male, was in love with the Parkland school shooter and even wore a heart locket with Nicholas Cruz's picture inside. 7 years ago today, Cruz killed 17 people, students and staff, and injured 17 others at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Take a moment to remember those families on this day of love. According to the White House calendar, President Trump is flying home to Florida later today after signing more executive orders in the Oval Office. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's plane experienced a mechanical issue on its way to Munich, Germany last night, had to turn around go back to Joint Base Andrews, where Rubio got on another plane a few hours later and went to Munich. Rubio, Vice President Vance, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are all in Germany for today's International Security Conference. Newsmax's Greta Van Susteren is also there.
Good morning from Munich. It is snowing. It's very cold. We'll be doing our show tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern outside, but we're used to that. We did this at the inauguration of Washington on January 20th, so we're sort of used to being very cold. It's very exciting here because there are leaders from all over the world. We're going to talk to President Zelensky of Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance is here. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is here. And the big topic, of course, is Ukraine and Russia. So we'll find out more later about what everyone here thinks at this conference about this issue that's obviously nagging Eastern Europe and much of the world.
Keep in mind, Germany is 6 hours ahead of us. This is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in this morning's meeting.
The reality that returning to 2014 as borders as part of a negotiated settlement is unlikely. The reality of U.S. troops in Ukraine is unlikely. The reality of Ukraine membership in NATO as a part of a negotiated settlement, unlikely.
Vice President Vance is scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky today, and Greta may be speaking with the vice president or with President Zelensky or the defense secretary or all of them. So be watching Newsmax for that today. These discussions will be followed by a second round of talks next week in Saudi Arabia. President Trump mentioned in one of the news conferences yesterday that he could or likely would be going to Saudi Arabia to attend that event. Secretary of State Rubio will be attending the G7 ministers meeting in Munich this weekend. Let's go to Katrina Zish and Bob Brooks on American Agenda.
All right, and joining us now, former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor, Katie McFarland. Katie, always great to have you with us here. Your reaction to these phone calls that President Trump had with President Zelensky and President Putin. How do you think this is going to play out?
And it's just, Trump is brilliant. You know, he's an extraordinary negotiator. There's a reason he has that reputation. So what has he done in a couple of weeks' time? He's taken a war that's basically a war of attrition with frozen zones. And he said, let's stir it up and let's have a negotiation. So what had happened prior to this was that the Biden administration had encouraged Ukraine to don't go to any negotiating table until Russia, as a precondition, gives all the land back. Well, that wasn't going to happen. And at the same time, President Trump has said to Zelensky, you know, you have rare earth minerals. We would really like to have access to those. We'd really like to help develop them. So the way this is coming out is as follows. By President Trump saying, you're not getting the land back, you're not joining NATO, he's all of a sudden given Ukraine a lot of incentives to go to the negotiating table. At the same time, he said to Vladimir Putin, you know, you go to the negotiating table, but I'm giving Ukraine everything it needs up until the point where we get a deal. So then the incentive is for Russia to go to the negotiating table. And he's gotten everybody now to agree to a negotiation. You know, the whole thing of this, it's been frozen. It's been, nobody's gotten any, Ukraine wasn't going to win this war. Russia wasn't going to win this war. If Russia wanted it all, it would be slowly, grindingly over years and decades of time. But now there is a deal potentially there, where the United States has access to their rare earth minerals, where Russia gets a deal, doesn't like every part of it, but it's a deal. Ukraine won't like every part of it, but it's a deal. And then what happens is that the West rushes into with an economic opportunity to rebuild Ukraine. So while Ukraine doesn't win the war, Ukraine could win the peace.
Katie, your thoughts about maybe some of the European Union countries, and they don't like maybe how this negotiation's going. They're the closest. They're closer to Ukraine than we are. Maybe they should pony up more.
You know, the first phone call President Trump took in his first term, Bob, was he took a phone call from the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And first thing out of her mouth, what are you going to do about Ukraine? And he comes back, what are you going to do about Ukraine? You're the neighbor. It's your neighborhood. Why should we be defending everybody? Why should we be paying everything when you're just sitting on the sidelines? It's your security. So I think that it's dawned on the people in the United in all of Europe, really, in NATO, that they've got to sort of ante up. They've got to do their fair share. But at the same time, this deal doesn't happen without Donald Trump.
Katie, also want to get your thoughts on the tariffs that President Trump is discussing overall, but also specifically today, those reciprocal tariffs.
Okay, so this is really interesting. For years, people have said free trade is what we used to have before. In other words, American goods would go into another country maybe with a 25% tariff tax. Their goods, that country's goods, could come into the United States with a 2% tariff. Now, that's not a fair or reciprocal tariff. So that's why President Trump has said, look, forget the words fair, equal, let's just have it reciprocal. If they want to charge us 25%, great, we'll charge 25%. If they want to go to zero, we'll go to zero. But it should be fair across the board. And that's the big difference. And President Trump, with all these tariff wars, he understands the one thing that is we've always had the ability, but nobody's ever taken advantage of it. We have, as Bob just said, the biggest market in the world. Other countries need to sell their stuff to us a whole lot more than we need to buy it from them.
They need to sell it to us a whole lot more than we need to buy it from them. Former Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland on American Agenda. And let's listen to exactly what the president said about reciprocal tariffs.
Mr. President, you are meeting Prime Minister Modi of India this afternoon. What kind of trade and tariff relationship would you like to have with India, and what's the vision for India-US?
Yeah, India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And, I mean, we'll be talking about that. But, again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it works out very well. It's a beautiful, simple system. And we don't have to worry about, gee, we're charging too much or too little. But traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley-Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes into India because of the fact that India, the tax was so high, the tariff was so high. And Harley was forced to build, I guess they built, I don't know, that was a while ago, but I think they built a factory in India in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors, that includes everything. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
What should consumers expect? Are prices going to go up short-term,
well,
long-term?
Not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily. But I'll tell you what will go up is jobs. The jobs will go up tremendously. We're going to have great jobs for everybody. This is something that should have been done many years ago. China did it. I mean, China did it at a level that probably nobody's ever seen before. If you manufactured a car, you couldn't send it into China. The tariff was so high. So everybody went and they built in China. It was no big secret. So we're going to see, but it's going to mean tremendous amounts of jobs. And ultimately, prices will stay the same, go down. But we're going to have a very dynamic country.
But if prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs, who do you think voters should hold responsible?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up. And prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration. The last administration hated our farmers, like at a level that I've never seen before. I think our farmers are going to be helped. Jobs are going to be helped, but our farmers are going to be helped. Our manufacturers are going to be helped. And again, if somebody wants to come in, including the car companies, if they want to come in and build car plants, they'll do it without tariffs, and therefore prices won't go up. There could be some short-term disturbance, but long-term, it's gonna make our country a fortune.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No, you said that. I didn't say that. You know?
Well, if the prices go up,
well, let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen, other than we know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that the prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
Mr. President, can you explain the timeline here, sir? There's a period of time for a review, a report, 180 days. Sure. What's the earliest date that you think tariffs will actually be implemented and executed?
Well, I would say maybe I'll ask Howard to answer that because he's going to be the one that's implementing. What do you think?
Our studies should be all complete by April 1st. So we'll hand the president the opportunity to start on April 2nd if he wants. So I think we'll be ready to go on April 1st, and we'll hand it to the president, and he'll make his decisions. But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up, and our costs are going down. Remember, it's a two-way street. That's why it's called reciprocal.
Okay, that's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. He's the guy with the beard that you've seen standing next to the president while Trump signs executive orders and answers questions from the press. Lutnick was the CEO of investment firm Cantor Fitzgerald. This news conference was before the bilateral news conference with Prime Minister Modi of India, also carried live on Newsmax.
Thank you very much. And he's doing a great job in India. Everybody talks about it. He's doing a really fantastic job. A great leader. Great leader.
मोदी जी बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं भारत में और हर कोई इसकी बात कर रहे हैं कि वे बहुत बड़े नेता हैं, बहुत महान नेता हैं।
मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूं आपके इन शब्दों के लिए और मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत का हर नागरिक आपकी इस भावना का आदर करता है।
I thank you for your warm words, Mr. President, and I firmly believe that every person in India respects your sentiments.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Any questions, please?
Yes, President.
You are both very popular leaders in your respective countries. You've spoken about a common sense diplomatic doctrine. So what's a Trump-Modi doctrine that we should expect from the meetings?
आप दोनों ही बहुत popular leaders हैं।
Our words better and safer.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship, he and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends and we're going to stay that way.
The question, which was a little hard to hear, I believe, was you are both very well-respected leaders in your countries, and what is the Trump doctrine with India going to look like? Something to that effect. On yesterday's Newsmax Daily, we heard from new Attorney General Pam Bondi on sanctuary cities.
We have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV.
I told you that border czar Tom Homan was meeting with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and he stopped by the Newsmax studios. Let's go back to American Agenda.
Tom, great to have you on American Agenda here with us in studio. I know that you came to the Big Apple specifically for your meeting that happened earlier today with Mayor Eric Adams. How did it go?
It went pretty good. I mean, it could have been better, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. So I came out to follow up on our first discussion, which was several weeks ago. We made some commitments on some movement. Haven't seen that movement. So I came up today and want to know when we're going to see that movement. So I left today with some good things. I left today with a plan to incorporate some other things we're putting in place. So it was a good meeting.
Tom, why aren't you seeing that movement? What's going on? What we were talking about, they're putting in roadblocks, some of these sanctuary cities, preventing you from doing your work, other teams doing their work.
Well, sanctuary cities are sanctuary for criminals.
Right.
What I want is arrest. President Trump's been clear. I've been clear. We're prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats. But you got New York City releasing criminals from Rikers Island every day. People are in the country illegally. They're violent criminals, and they're getting released back into the public, which is just dumb politics. So I'm asking, give us a presence back in Rikers Island. That's something the mayor committed to today. More take movements and having an ICE presence at Rikers Island. It's the right thing to do. And for the naysayers, the city council wants nothing to do with ICE. They need to understand, if we arrest the bad guy at Rikers Island, then the alien's safe, the officer's safe, the community's safe. But when you release that public safety threat back in the public, what do I have to do? We got to send law enforcement officers in that community. And we will find him. But when we find him, he's going to be with others. Others who aren't a criminal priority, but they're going to be in the country illegally, so we're going to arrest them too. So sanctuary city is going to get exactly what they don't want. More collateral arrests, more non-criminal arrests, and more officers in the neighborhood.
Tom, are you seeing other sanctuary cities across the country trying to dig their heels in and fight? Or do you think they're starting to realize, you know what, we're going to have to kind of pitch in and actually help with the president's agenda?
Well, I see a little movement. I mean, the meeting with the mayor today, Mayor Adams, is a good move. A year ago, we wouldn't have this meeting. You know, I know Governor Pritzker, who I have zero respect in, he's even talking about, well, we should handle criminals over. Now, Governor Hochul, She came out after the violence here in New York City. Well, we ought to be, criminal aliens should be removed. Well, I can't do it if you don't let me in Rikers Island. I can't do it with your sanctuary policies. So on one side of her mouth, she wants public safety threats removed, but you don't give us the access to arrest them. So I'm glad the Attorney General's suing them. They should sue them. We need to hold them accountable.
So it seems like an actions not matching words things here when it comes to some of these liberal governors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Around the country, the pace of things, what's that looking like? I know you want it to be ramped up more. How do you get that? Is it funding? Is it cooperation through other agencies? What's the hang-up?
Look, I was up on the Hill the other day. We need money. We need a lot of money. And people say, well, it's expensive, what you're asking for. Well, right now we're paying billions of dollars in perpetuity, whether it's schools, hospitals, trauma centers, free hotel rooms, whatever it is, right? And that's in perpetuity. Yeah, fund this expensive project, but it's going to save the taxpayers.
We have billions to facilitate this whole mess and let it crack open, to your point, in perpetuity. Now they don't want to give you any money.
Well, I think Congress is going to give us money. I'm confident after the meeting the other day. I think the Republican-controlled Senate wants to help. They understand the president's been giving us. This is his number one issue. I think America gave the president a mandate, and he's going to keep his promise. We're going to secure the border, which the border crossing is already down 90% in 3 weeks. And the arrests in the interior were about 3 times higher than the Biden administration was a year ago today. But I'm not happy. We need more. So what we're going to do, we're going to double the targeting, we're going to double the manpower, we're going to add more teams to the streets. I wish we didn't have to do that. Let us in the jails, be much more efficient. One officer can arrest one bad guy. In the neighborhood, we got to send a whole team to find him for officer safety reasons.
Border Czar Tom Homan reiterating the massive drop in border crossings and massive increase in arrests, as border correspondent Jason Jones told us earlier in the week. He thinks Congress is going to give him the money that he needs. With the GOP controlling the Senate and the House, I would hope so. It's not like they didn't know this was coming, right? And speaking of that, old marble mouth Mitch has got to go. Senator Mitch McConnell was the only Republican not to vote in favor of RFK yesterday. Okay, maybe, you feel that strongly against him that you vote against him. The whole vaccine thing, and McConnell had polio and all that. But he voted against Tulsi Gabbard and against Pete Hegseth, which is basically just obstructing the entire Trump plan, right? Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt was asked about Senator McConnell back in Wednesday's briefing.
There was one Republican who voted against the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard. It was Senator Mitch McConnell. Similarly, how does the administration view Senator McConnell? Can he be a partner in the president's legislative agenda? Are you disappointed that he voted against not only Tulsi Gabbard, but also Pete Hegseth to be the defense secretary?
I think we're greatly disappointed in any Republican who chooses willfully to vote against the president's exceptionally qualified cabinet nominees and picks to lead his America First administration. Not a single Democrat swayed from voting against President Biden's nominees, and we know how many of them turned out. They turned out to be atrocious at their jobs, leaving America much worse than they were when they took the oath of office. And so I've said it repeatedly from this podium. I addressed it at the beginning of my remarks. We expect all Republicans to vote, to stay tough and strong, vote for President Trump's nominees so we can get to work and continue to work very hard to implement this president's agenda.
That was at Wednesday's press briefing. Then yesterday, McConnell, as I mentioned, was the only Republican to vote against Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was confirmed as Health and Human Services Secretary.
A real honor for me to introduce Robert F. Kennedy Jr., take the oath of office and officially become our Secretary of Health and Human Services.
This was the focus of last night's Finnerty.
RFK Jr. says that he wants to make America healthy again, and he's going to get his chance after he was confirmed by a Senate vote final today, 52-48. Once again, Mitch McConnell, as we were just talking about, the only Republican to vote no for a Trump nominee after voting no on Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth. Kennedy says now is the time to make Americans healthy again, but especially American children.
We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly. And the first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is to get on my knees and pray to God that he would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children.
All right, Donald Trump swearing Kennedy in during an Oval Office ceremony early this afternoon. And joining us now for more is the host of the Keeping It Real podcast, Jillian Michaels. Back with us. Jillian, great to see you again. Now that this is happening, this is real, what would you like to see RFK Jr. do first?
Gosh, I actually can't still believe it. I've been beaming all day long. I'm certainly not one to tell this gentleman how to do his job. He is far more qualified than I could ever hope to be. But if I had to take a guess, I imagine he is tasked with rooting out corruption. I think that's where he's going to start. I think he's going to review and restructure our government health agencies and then look for conflicts of interest so he can root them out. Literally. I think that's where it begins.
Let me ask you about that. So he wants to remake the FDA and end what he calls the mass poisoning of American children who are eating toxic processed foods with ingredients, Jillian, we talked about this a week ago, that are illegal in other countries. How bad is this problem?
I mean, I don't want to scare anyone, but it's pretty awful. And if you look at the statistics with regard to healthcare in America, and I can run down the litany again, but people kind of glaze over. It's everything from seeing 74% of our adults with obesity, 33% of the kids being overweight or obese, teens with fatty liver disease, infertility skyrocketing. Here's another statistic you don't hear as often, but I was just talking to a 27-year-old guy about it yesterday. 30-year-old men today have the testosterone that 50-year-old men had 30 years ago. It's stuff like this, and it's the toxic soup of chemicals that we're eating every day, that we're breathing, that we're drinking in our water. And while, of course, I want people to take agency, they need help. The food is poisoned. It's just simply not that easy to do it all on your own. And that's where I'm hoping Kennedy will have a huge impact. Is there any change that somebody watching right now, somewhere in this great country, could make that is an easy change that's not going to, not going to cost too much money? Is there anything that you have seen others have success with that you could recommend? A ton of simple stuff. The first thing is we have to eat less food. And I know people don't want to hear it, but I can make it simple. You don't have to sit there and count calories. Take half of what you eat every day and put it in a to-go container. Package it up and tuck it in the back of the fridge or the fridge at the office, wherever you work. This will not only save you money, but it will cut your calories in half by eating less, regardless of what's in the food, presuming that there are artificial colors and fake flavors and so on and so forth. You'll be taking in less of those toxins and less calories overall, which is better for you, period. Have a step goal. Get a little walking pad so when you're working, when you're watching your favorite show at night and you're unwinding, you can hit a step goal. I mean, I, of course, would love 10,000 steps a day. And before you roll your eyes and change the channel on me, or on you rather, let's shoot for 5,000 and work our way up. But a simple step goal on a walking pad will get it done for just a few $100s of an investment off of Amazon, for example. And honestly, don't drink calories. This is another big one, because when we drink our calories, generally, those kinds of beverages are loaded with chemicals and sugar and excess calories that we simply don't need. If you just drink water and coffee or tea, it's going to go a long, long way. Those 3 simple steps will have a dramatic impact on your overall health. I promise you. All right. Jillian Michaels, great to see you again. We'll have you back once RFK Jr. gets rolling. His first full day as HHS Secretary happens tomorrow. A lot of people very excited about that. I'm one of them. Jillian Michaels, thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Rob Finnerty is the host of Finnerty. Tomorrow being today, Kennedy said he would visit the FDA on day 1, so we'll see what's in store for today. During his confirmation hearings, Kennedy had assured both parties that he would not take action to oppose the use of vaccines. He repeatedly said that his primary focus would be on fighting chronic disease in America. So with Kennedy on the job and Tulsi Gabbard on the job, plus the conference in Germany, the president signing more executive orders and heading back to Florida today, it will be another busy day. President Trump is scheduled to attend the Daytona 500 on Sunday, also known as the Great American Race. I said back on Monday when the news broke that I'll tell you about it later in the week because on Monday we were focused on the Super Bowl, right? We, being my family and I, we go to the Daytona 500 every year, sort of a family tradition. It's about 45, 50 minutes away from where we live in Northeast Orlando. We were there when Trump attended back in 2020. You remember that? And here's what's so cool about it. I mean, anytime you're at an event where the president of the United States shows up, it's awesome to begin with, right? But the runway of Daytona International Airport is literally right next to the raceway. I mean, right next to it. And Air Force One back in 2020 essentially did a flyover of the speedway. I mean, low as it landed. Low, like you felt like you could almost jump up and touch it. I mean, to see and hear Air Force One fly right over you like that. Plus, they showed it on the big screens, you know, watch it land. They showed it on the big screens as it was landing. Simply awesome. One of those moments that makes you feel so damn proud to be an American. And of course, the NASCAR fan base loves Trump. Then, when he got to the track, presidential motorcade actually took a few laps around the track. I don't know if you remember seeing this on the news. Trump had the window down, waving to everyone. There's like 120, 130,000 people chanting USA, USA. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's going to be a great Sunday. On Wall Street, stocks opened the final trading session of the week slightly lower. Bitcoin was up to 97,000. XRP at the time of this recording is up 26 cents to 273. Most other cryptos in the green as well. Be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments throughout the day and the weekend on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. It all begins each and every day with Wake Up America, followed by National Report, Bianca De La Garza, Carl Higbee, Greta. Don't forget, she is in Munich. Rob Schmidt, Finnerty, Greg Kelly, on and on. Wake Up America Weekend Edition, Saturday and Sunday agenda. America Right Now. Ambassador Nancy Brinker, The Savage Nation now on Sundays. So make sure you check it all out on Newsmax. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a happy Valentine's Day. Go Joey Logano. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.